some of this stuff, if you want to do this specialty, business, and what we do is, I don't think there's really an education for it. Unless you have somebody like you, or you do it yourself and you're willing to learn and make the mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't think any formal training can get you every element that are in these four walls. Let's dive right into the Optus project.
Welcome back to the Labeled Podcast, and I'm here with today Dusty v. Dusty. How you doing, brother?
Doing all right. Just got off doing a hood like 10 minutes ago, so I'm still kind of cruising on the old PPF.
You were on the hood?
Well, I was laying film on the hood.
Oh, laying film on what kind of car?
992.2 GT3 Touring.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So GT3 Touring does not have a wing?
No, it's the road version of a GT3.
That explains why
touring.
I didn't see a wing on it.
Yep. It's got storage in the front trunk.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Storage. I like that.
I know. They're sweet. This one's got 6 seats, though. It's got like an updated seat.
6 seats?
6 seats.
Oh,
It's got
6.
cool seats in it.
S-I-K.
Yeah.
I got you, brother. All right. So we got 6 seats, GT3, Dusty v. Dusty, laying PPF film. He was on the hood earlier. Hopefully the film was already down, so the hood's not scratched. And hopefully the client's not currently watching this, because if he finds out you were on the hood, we might have an issue and have to issue a refund, which, by the way, there are no refunds. So,
Right.
anyways, I think today we're going to pick up where we left off last week, which was talking about the SEMA show. And obviously we talked about some of our trials, tribulations, some things that we didn't necessarily like, some things that we've done. The first of your first time at the show. Mm-hmm. But given the situation that we're in now, where we're currently building a car for SEMA, which is going to be in the Miltech booth that we talked about in the previous episode, why don't you tell me this year, given that you've been, how many SEMA builds have you been
I was
along
thinking
with
about that after we got done with the last podcast, and I don't think 2020 was the first one, because I think it was shut down. I think it was 2021.
Yeah, 21 was the first
So this would be 4.
So 4.
Yeah.
So this will be your fourth time participating
Yep.
as a building company. What is your, I guess, looking at year 1, year 2, and then we know what we did last year. Year 3 kind of for us was a relearn of 2021, where 2021 we took a program that we had no experience with, fit it to the car, went through all of the build aspects and learning on that car. We got better in 2022, built the client cars. Those were all great. And then we kind of hit the reset button in 2023 with the new program coming in, but with the knowledge of already having built a car from scratch. We were able to power through that. We fought all the way to the end, got that car built the way that we want. We didn't have the hiccups that we did in 2021 that were affecting the outcome of the car that the way they did in 2021. So now looking at what we did in 23, how do you look at 24 as far as our process? Because I'm curious from your eyes, doing it for less than 5 years now, how you see that progression. Are you happy with it? Do you see some spots where, we're continuing to improve, things like that? Like, what's your take on it being like the younger generation from me?
Yeah. I mean, there's always growth with it. I think every year there's a learning experience for us, and that kind of goes for every chassis that we build. Is like there's always some sort of takeaway from it, whether,
Right.
it's me laying the vinyl. It's like, make notes here, stretch here, whatever, make an inlay here.
Yep.
But if we're talking about the build, it's a whole different level than where we started. And that's what's hard to convey, is like the bracketry behind the scenes of the panels, like the exterior panels on the car. They looked great in 2021. They looked fantastic, but nobody understands what the underpinnings look like of one of those cars. And from then to now, and where this next chassis is that we're bringing to SEMA compared to last year's, there's just so many more advancements in terms of like just thinking through, bracketry, how things are routed, all the fine detail stuff that make the build, as top tier as possible.
Yep.
I think that's one of the more exciting things to be a part of, is because it's like, I feel like there's always room for improvement. I feel like you never can build that perfect car. And with the newer cars, I think we talked about in previous episodes, like there's always variables with them too. And that's what's been kind of challenging, is like, how do we work through those variables, not expecting it, and then all of a sudden we're in the timeline of building the car, and here's something that we weren't expecting pop up.
Yeah.
We got to take care of that. So I think all in all, every single year has been, you know, phenomenal in terms of just gaining knowledge, building a better car each year. Not knowing that we can do that either. That's the cool part about it. Is like last year was, you know, pretty insane with what we produced because of the shortened timeline, literally down to the last minute to get the car done and ready. But as dialed as that car was, you know, we were like, obviously there's a couple things just because of the timeline, but we knew, like, I don't know how much better can it get. But now it's like these up and coming cars that we're building and pulling out of here, they're going to be dialed. And that's what's cool. Sure. And I don't know, it just gives me excitement to be like, it makes me more proud to be a part of it. Cause it's like, definitely. You know, each year you're just growing and growing in knowledge.
Yeah. I remember being scared taking the first car in there, you know, not the first car we built here, but the first time I ever took a car to SEMA, you know, and driving it in, and you know, that load in area, you know, now we're like old veterans there, just pull up. We're like, oh, we got this.
I think there's still fear with it though, because it's like, you never quite know. I mean, I don't know. I think you look at it a little differently, but sure. Every year you kind of got those nerves of taking it in there. What are people going to think of it?
And, you know, always for me, the nerves are not necessarily nerves of concern about our performance or anything like that, but it's more like anxiousness or anticipation of what's to come, you know, because that's the thing. There is no set, here's what's to come as soon as the doors open. Here's what you can expect. Here's plan to this, plan that. It just doesn't happen that way. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of times if you guys come out to SEMA and you, or if you're in the industry and you come by the booth, a lot of times you'll see Justin and I just lingering around. Typically, we're always around the booth. We enjoy seeing people's reaction. We want to be there to answer questions. And you know, a lot of people use it as a selling show because they do retail and sell parts. For us, it's not necessarily that. It's more of just an exhibition of our work and also exhibition of our partnerships, and then the execution of what we do and showing it on that larger scale. So when we are doing that, since it is a trade-only show, a lot of times it's more geared towards the people that are already in the industry. So the conversations that sometimes come from just showing the car are a lot more in depth rather than, hey, how did you do this? How did you do that? Yep. It's more like, I'm amazed by this. Would you want to sit down and talk about this? Or I've got an idea about this, or how could we create something here? And that's the stuff that's exciting for me. So that's the anxiousness I feel coming into the space every year, and also making sure it's kind of up to our standard, because no matter where we go, if you guys have seen our stuff set up, even though we're not a big budget outfit, we try to put on the best display. We try to be very particular with the way things are aligned, or lighting is set up, or our display boards and things like that. And you've learned I'm just like a big stickler for those types of details, because I believe all of the presentation goes into your reputation when somebody looks at you. You know, if you guys have visited the shop, you know, you come in the shop represents kind of our work too, being neat, clean, tidy. We do not, you know, trash the place. We always have cleanup every week, and we do all that stuff ourselves. So it's just taking pride in what you do and ownership of what you do. And when people come in and you've set the tone for what to expect before they even have a car or brought a car inside, I feel like that process of us working together becomes easier, because it's eliminated all this outside noise that is traditional in our industry. When you go to places, sometimes it's in an unsecure location. Sometimes you walk in and you're like, wow, if they're working on that, should I leave this here? And it's not a knock on the person's like professional aptitude or intelligence. It's just more of, okay, if this stuff happens, it opens up maybe a liability for an accident or a mix-up or a delay. Or if, you know, I walk in a shop and he's got 40 cars stacked up and he's telling me next week he's starting on my car. Well, why are those 40 cars sitting? Is it money? Is it mismanagement of time? Is it mistakes? You know, what are those owners thinking of their car? And am I going to end up in that line of 40 cars?
Exactly.
So there's always a lot of thought process that goes into, I think, when we go to SEMA and meet those people. Again, every year you and I put together a special shirt. You know, we came up with that design last year, which I thought was really neat. And we always put our partners on the back, but we also want to do something special that highlights them and also looks good and represents our brand.
Yep.
Not just the generic, shirt that you would put together or something like
Yeah,
that. But
and windshield banner, we try to, that's the other
Always.
thing is like we try not to be tacky with a lot of that stuff because you go to see cars and they got just stickers slapped all over them with all their sponsors, which is fine.
Yep.
But we try to do it, in some sort of a refined way that matches our whole brand. And
Yep.
that's been kind of interesting for me is like heading to SEMA for the first time. I didn't know what to expect, obviously. And then, understanding what your vision was for how the car looks in the booth. Like last year we pulled the car in. We're looking at it, and I think we let it sit. Did we let it sit overnight?
We
and
did
then
let it sit overnight,
And then we
yeah.
flipped it. You couldn't stop thinking about it. You're like, I think I need these wheels on the outside.
Yep.
There's just so many fine details that you don't really think about, like in preparation to get the car ready for the days of SEMA.
Yep.
And that goes for, wiping the car down, striping the dash, all that stuff.
Yep.
Just to go above and beyond and try to, if only one person walks by there and it makes a really good impression and starts a conversation, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And I think that first impression in what you consider to be like, I guess, or I should say, like how you want everything to look is different than what I was expecting going in there. I thought it was more of a car show or something, but it's like when you start picking apart every element, the center caps are lined up perfectly, and just the little elements, I think it makes a big deal.
Yeah,
it's
does.
a big difference because
It
you start looking at some of the other cars and they don't even consider any of that stuff.
Right. And you see the guys that you kind of admire, and no matter what kind of builder they are, when you walk up to their space and you take that all in and you're like, okay, I can see where they've addressed every single thing.
Yeah.
And obviously, you come into Autorama and seeing how people, when they compete for the Riddler.
Yep, that's way different than in SEMA. I
Right?
did not expect that at all.
Hundreds of hours go into the setup of just the display to get the car into position.
Custom painting rails and all that stuff. Yeah,
they're out there like raking carpet and they're doing everything. But that's ultimately it's at that level that you want to be judged at. So for some people it might not matter. It may be just a street car, a street package, a dealer installed package, maybe a race car. There's a lot of, that's the thing in the industry, there's a lot of different avenues where some of that stuff doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And it ultimately just comes down to, I think, your personal like integrity on what you want to show. And always for me, it's always been like, you can dislike the design, you can dislike the actual car, you can dislike the color, but you're not going to take away from the presentation of it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we've really stood above. And I think our partners have all really grown to respect that and appreciate it.
Yeah, and they've supported us with that. It's like,
Always.
We're sitting there with the lighting guys with Gentek's booth for a couple hours. Hey, can you move this light here? Can you change the color tone? And we're sitting there going through that process with us. It's not, it's a little different than I think most guys have. Like, hey, the car's here, light it up. We're gonna step away. You got it.
Yep.
That's
I think the respect. Not to interrupt you. That's the respect I think they have as far as like our design minds and design orientation. As far as saying, hey, I see what you guys do. I respect that. Mm-hmm. What do you see here? We went to ZF Motorsport and we were in the outdoor space. They brought the NSX hill climb car, and they initially were going to have that on the edge, more as like a protection, and put the car on the other side. And, some people would be like, okay. And I didn't like that. So I requested we be put over there. Then we switched up where the shock and everything was going to be displayed and set it up the way that I thought it looked best. And they loved it, So I think that's the respect that means a ton to me. I think that's also why I take that as such an important role. Is like if somebody like trusts you to set up their space that they've paid for, just because you brought the car doesn't mean you should tell them how to present everything, but the respect you get from bringing the car that, they see your work and then they're like, what's your eye see?
Yeah.
To allow me that, that I take that with like a lot of great honor and pride to say, we need to make them look best. And, we always talk about that anyway. We need to make this brand, whoever we've partnered with, look the best. I mean, our whole thing isn't like, give us free stuff because, we should get free stuff or everything, we're going to make you $1 million. No, that's not the case. The case with us is very, I'd say transparent and say, we're going to bring light to your brand, but we don't sell volume. We're not going to promise all this stuff, but we have a lot that we can offer behind the lens, with the camera, with your presentation and what we're going to put it on, with the people that are going to see this. And I think that's really where I'm proud of for being a small outfit and not having that big financial backing or financial push, that's what people look at you for, is like, it's just about the money.
Exactly.
It's the other way here,
Yep.
which is awesome. So I think it's been a lot more meaningful for us to go to SEMA, and I think that also ups the anxiousness when you walk in the building. It's because you're not feeling the pressure just
It's
for
a high
your
bar.
own stuff.
That's for sure.
You're now feeling the pressure of your partner. That
And you
we've
do
worked
not
with.
want to let them down.
And never.
And that's the other thing. I don't know if you want to talk about it a little bit, but the investment of what it takes, for those companies to be there themselves. Like people always ask, "Oh, do you guys have a booth?" Well, the reality of that is,
Right.
no, it does not make sense for Label Motorsports to have a booth at SEMA.
Correct.
And yeah, I don't know, a little bit more about that, but the pricing for just a booth space, not even talking about the booth setup, getting people out there. You got a team of 10 that you got a room for 7 to 10 days. Just the cost of that is incredible.
Yeah, when you look at those bigger like Peninsula spots, or those spots like Gentex is at, or like Miltech and stuff, I mean, those things are nearing 6 figures, over 6 figures. And we're not talking about what the booth looks like, guys. We're talking about the footprint.
An empty piece
That's
of
it. And
concrete.
then if you see what it costs to have electrical put in there, outlets, and it's a per outlet basis. It's like $50 per outlet. And places like Gentex, how many power supplies do they have in there? I don't even know.
There's a whole control panel.
Yeah, exactly. That I don't even know what I'm looking at. So, you look at that and you say, okay, these guys are going to have 3 cars in their space, and we're one of them. So they're going to have $500,000 invested into space for 4 days, and they're allowing us to come in there and present. Mm-hmm. You're not going to come in there and take that lightly, and if you do, you'll never be back. That's the harsh reality of it. Yep. And you look who they're with this year, the Ring Brothers. The best builders. It's got to be top 3 best builders in the country currently. And you've got them in their booth space. And does Gentex build products for the hot rod industry? Have they ever done that? No. Are they releasing something with Ring Brothers specifically this year? I believe so. But they've never been a retail focused product line. So they're bringing companies like us and like them in, and they're not even selling parts that you would be able to buy from them. But that goes to show you, the respect that they've allowed.
Yeah, it's truly an honor to be able to be a part of any sort of booth, but then, have the support like companies like that, where it's like really us being there is, we're not selling anything for them. Like Miltech's different this year, but like you said, it's like we're not set up to sell 300 cats. Right. It's just a different. You just got to look at things differently in a different lens, and I've grown to learn that over the years. It's like there's value different ways than just selling a product, and I think you're pretty good at that. Is like, I can sell the brand and I can sell the vision of what this can all look like, but I'm not going to sell you 500 units of this.
Right. And we've started on that path more in the past 12 months with you and with PPF, and in investing on where we think that technology is going, where you as an installer, if you guys aren't aware, and I think we've talked about it plenty of times, but we're not necessarily PPF brand specific. We've never fallen into that trap of saying you can only use one brand, because I think at the end of the day, all that does is either puts you at their mercy, or you're just chasing a check. You're not always looking out for your client's best interest of, is this the best film? Is it the best for you? It doesn't even have to be your best interest. Like, somebody comes to you and says, hey, listen, we're going to cut you a discount structure that allows you to use this, and the clarity sucks, and the installation is 50% longer than another product, or more difficult to work with, or you're going to scrap more. Who's raising their hand for that? Just because you have the biggest market share in the marketing space, and at the end of the day, those guys aren't standing here in front of your customers. So this year we've invested more, and I know you've tried lots of different brands.
Yeah, this year more than any year.
And the market's getting flooded with it, guys. And you guys that are in the industry, that PPF is one of those industries that fluctuates. I think just like detailing, ceramic coating, all that stuff. Everybody's got the newest, hypest, greatest. Now everybody's going to colors, which we aren't fully sold on colors. We've seen some good applications of colors, but given your expertise in vinyl, you look at a colored PPF, and we know what we can do with vinyl. It's really hard to replicate that in colored PPF maybe to that level on some of the jam work and things that we
Exactly.
do.
Yeah, that's where the limitation is, and I'm excited for the evolution of the film.
Yep.
I mean, that's the problem is like for a few years there, everything was stagnant. Is like with the wrap world is like it was vinyl wrap and then it was clear PPF, and that's what you had. And so now those two worlds are merging, and they're basically merging the technologies, taking some of the technology from vinyl wrap, integrating that adhesive to a TPU film, which is PPF. And then there is limitations with it, like you said, is like when we do a color change, we're doing full door jams, all that stuff. A lot of these newer cars, the rear bumpers, the front bumpers, they're really angular. They're not as bubbly as they used to be. Right. So you're limited there. It's not a Porsche 911 for everything. So that makes it even more challenging. So seams with a thicker film, there's just a lot of limitations with it. But I'm excited because I think that will be the future.
Sure.
It's just going to take a little bit to get there. But like you said, with the brand stuff, that's been interesting for me, is trying to not be sold on one brand, and not have loyalty in one brand. I think there's a part of that that's important, but it's not everything.
Yep.
And having the willingness to be like, actually, you have a really big name. I would like to be a part of it, but
Sure.
there's qualities of this film that I'm not happy with. And that's why I'm not using it. And I just had that conversation with a sales rep a couple weeks ago. And you just have to be honest, and be willing to try new things. And you're gonna get burned sometimes. I'm gonna blast through material, but it's interesting now, being able to leverage like what we do and some of the cars that we're fortunate enough to work on, to be like, hey, I feel like I'm qualified enough to try your film, give you my opinion, and then hopefully you guys will support it. And, more times than not, they're like, yeah, we would love your support. It's not like, right up front, I'm like, I'm not a production facility. It's like, I'm not pumping, 5 cars out a week, like some of these shops in California and stuff. So, and a lot of those companies, if they actually do care, like the company we're working with now, they're really supportive. We've got a really good sales rep, who's willing to do pretty much anything to help us out, which is, really nice. That's different than a lot of these young companies that have young people. Nothing wrong with, because I'm a young guy, but there's younger people getting into this as like sales representatives and stuff, and not having the knowledge behind the technology, the material, what our brand is, how we install, which is a completely different thing. It's like you really don't know unless you come here, you see it with your own eyes, and all that. So that's why another reason why I like going to SEMA every year, though, is seeing the new technology that's out there. And you can see, like we said in the last one, you can see people's work and see how's that color PPF evolving? How's the windshield film coming along? And you can go see it firsthand, where I think that's probably one of the only places in the world where you can see pretty much every manufacturer that's out there, which is kind of cool. And, it is getting kind of diluted, but that's always been fun for me, is like, I try to take a day or day and a half and head out to West Hall and, spend some time for myself and go walk through most of those guys, have some conversations, get some numbers, and then, regroup after SEMA and, make those connections again and try out some new film and all that. It's kind of a reoccurring thing every year, it's fun and it's interesting, and you learn a lot, and you find new products that you weren't expecting, which is cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this year's project, while we've built a wide body Z06 once before, and we actually have another one in the works behind that, which will be a whole separate thing outside of this SEMA build. This car has given me a little more stress with kind of the colors that we're working with. And
why do you say that?
Well, it's a brighter colored car, which I like. We've talked about doing one. We've looked at lots of different colors in the past of like, well, this car is kind of fitting for a bright color. But also, like, if you see a lot of our stuff, I'm not one that necessarily likes to just throw bright colors on things just to do it. Mm-hmm. It should be fitting to the car, and kind of blend and still be tasteful. And that's what's hard to do, is because there's so much loud stuff in the market now. Typically, when you see something bright and loud, you almost have the tendency to be like, you put it into a bin. You're like, all right, I know that car. I know that build. It's going to have all the typical stuff, and there's not going to be a lot of thought into it. Mm-hmm. Not that that's a bad project, but the thought behind the project isn't there the way that we do it sometimes. And this one has required, more thought than.
Sorry, I'm not trying to laugh, but I just know the process
Oh, you're
we've been going.
laughing.
It's been struggling, dude. It's
Yeah,
been
you're
a
laughing.
struggle.
I think today I finally signed off on the interior, except for 2 other sew outs that I'm having
Okay.
completed, which I'm feeling a lot better about rather than 24 hours ago. Because when I came in yesterday, I was up at 2:00 in the morning already running through scenarios in my head that I was starting to get stressed out with, and that was with 40 days left, and we hadn't started. So some decisions needed to be made. We did have that sunny day that allowed us to get some stuff out there and take a look at it.
That's very important.
It
The
is.
difference in light
Huge.
is incredible.
Huge. And the fact that we usually choose colors that shift, not intentionally, but because we like the element that that color brings
Yep.
from a design aspect, that you really have to be careful with what you pair with it, because the undertones of a car, when you look at it from a distance, you may say that car's green. When you walk up on the car, you may say that car's got gold in it. And then when the sun comes out, you may say that car is almost gold with a tinge of green. And that's where you really need to be careful when pairing several elements. And there's usually a color wheel we work with that's either 3 colors, sometimes 4 at the max. And that will fluctuate at times with like tones and textures. So if we do the same color and then we do a spray out in a gloss, for instance,
gloss that.
we'll consider that 2 design elements, and then we work into like wheels, brakes, any text elements that we're going to add, and then we talk about interior elements. So sometimes that can get really complex as far as saying, well, I work with a charcoal gray interior that happens to have a red stitch, but on my exterior, I'm using no red or no primary colors. How do I make a red interior work without this customer wanting to flip this entire interior, and costing $25,000, $30,000 to do so? And we had that issue last year that we worked through. We worked through the caliper issue because we had the standard satin red calipers that come on the 70th anniversary, and we had the custom 70th anniversary interior, which had the white, red, and charcoal
suede.
and leather. So we liked the look of the gold wheels, so we ended up doing the gold wheels. And then I'm sitting there kind of looking at it saying, I got gold wheels, satin red stitching, white accents, suede, charcoal leather,
Green exterior.
green exterior, carbon fiber. And it got to be a little jumbled for me. I think the car in the end, it pulled it off because of some of the shading that, like the wheels, and we talked about this just the other day, how shading and interior of the car can change the look of the color from the outside. And then also how your larger scale, like palette items, like if you look at the color of a car being full green and you have a slightly different tone green, if it's in that same wheel, then it's on the interior. And it's in that same color wheel. When I said wheel, I meant color wheel. Sometimes that smaller element will turn towards the shade of the color that's the bigger scale, because your eye kind of plays tricks on you. So you can get away with that, but that's not something like you walk and you determine over an hour.
Yep.
It just doesn't happen. And that's the really big problem I have when customers come in and they would say, hey, can we look at some colors together? Sure. And we try to limit first, like the exterior colors. You'll have stuff picked out. I'll say, hey, Justin, pull some green metallics out, right? Yep. And you'll go out and you'll get all of those together, and we'll say, okay, that's what we're going to work with. Then we'll just talk about general accent colors when we go to that next level, because we ultimately want to land on primary color first and then build upon that. So if the customer loves the primary color and we say, all right, what's the tones of that primary color? And then is that tolerable with what we're going to have to stay with on this car? So if we're stuck with, say the interior's got green stitching, and the customer picks a color that we think does not flow well with green, that may eliminate that color from the conversation. And then we move on to the next thing. So it's actually really in-depth thought that goes into, these small details that some people may look past, but the people that matter, they analyze all of it, right? And I think this car, with our really awesome exterior color, which we do like, poses the biggest problem with matching everything else, and not matching, but making it flow, right?
Yeah, I think this has been the biggest challenge, if I'm being honest. This
Definitely.
process is normally like something I learned from you is like over the years is the exterior color of the car is not the highlight of the car. The highlight of the car are the elements around the car. So whether that's a carbon hood, carbon splitter, all that stuff, custom wheels, custom brakes, exhaust, all that stuff. That's what we're trying to highlight. Where this year, we're kind of changing that a little bit. Where the exterior color, you're not going to be looking past that color. And that's been kind of something challenging to work through, I shall say. And then bringing some, elements into the interior that really draw your eye. And it's been fun being part of that process a little more and more, and kind of talking through it with you of, hey, what's going to work, what's not going to work, what have we done in the past that looked okay, that was loud but still subtle enough and look clean, because that's the problem that we have is like we can do these super sick colors and do a full MSO interior like we always talk about, but how gaudy is that going to look at the end of the day? Right. And that's a huge risk.
It is.
You're talking about a $30,000 custom interior that you get that all together and you're like, you step back and you're like, this isn't right. This stitch color does not go well. It doesn't match the exterior. Like there's just so many elements. And actually it was funny, last night my dad was over helping me on my car and I was talking to him a little bit about our process. And I was telling him, I'm like, this year is probably the most scared we've been to try to like link colors together. Right. And I think we finally nailed it down because that was yesterday. But 2 days before that, we were slightly nervous for what was, what it started to come together and look like. But I think all in all, with the direction we're heading now, it's going to be sick. Yeah. I'm stoked for it. It's going to be completely different than what we've ever done.
It is. It's going to be one of those that definitely stand out in our book of work because there's so much in it that is different, even though it's on the same platform. That's ultimately, I think, what's exciting about it too, is that we're able to show kind of our vision and our expertise on a level to somebody that may like something a little louder, that may say, hey, that green and that color you did on the wheels and all that stuff looks great, but I'd like something that screams supercar. Or I take it to Cars and Coffee and people have to see what that is.
Which is a little out of our realm, but it's fun to do.
I mean, I like it. I think it's interesting. I think the only challenge that really hurts us is the fact that we have the timeline. You put this design element when you can go through things over time and you don't have a timeline, very different conversations, right? But when you're under the gun and then on top of that, this is going to be one of your highlighted cars for the next 12 months and your previous 12 months, it takes a different level of responsibility to be like, I got to get this right, because this is something we're not going to shortchange on the media side. We're not going to shortchange in the booth, and people are going to be all over this car into the future, wherever we take that car. So it's one of those things that, again, there's a lot of responsibility to pull off the client's vision and also pull it off for ourselves and make it feel like that's a label car, but that's a label car that's been pumped up quite a bit. And I think, some of the changes on this car go with kind of your growth as well, which is over the project after project, you've taken on a little more responsibility to learn and get more involved with some of the stuff that traditionally I would just do. And that's something that I think you guys might be interested to hear, is that Justin is kind of came to me and said, I'd like to have more involvement in working on these cars, having an impact on these big builds. He already has a big impact because he has to put the color down on every car. So we don't want to give him too much. Otherwise, next thing you know, he's going to be telling me, listen, dude, why don't you just go home? I can build this car. We don't even need you here. But I'm not going to let him do that, because then I'll just rip his wrap off at night or something, or I'll put lines in it and say, what'd you do here?
Exactly.
But I like to see Justin's growth as far as, when I first met you, working out of your shop and the things that you would work on. And I knew you were handy. You could wrench on stuff, a lot more than me on snowmobile motors and two strokes and motorcycles and stuff. That's just not my world. I've learned that stuff from you. So my limited knowledge, in that world, you've really helped me on some of the fun stuff that we like to do. But I will say there's my buddy Rich, shout out to Rich down in Florida with Porsche. if you're watching, send me a text. If you're not watching, I'm going to text you. But Porsche, a Porsche genius at heart is Rich. Rich has been with Porsche for, I think, over 20 years now. That dude, you could call him right now and you could just name some part. And I don't even care what generation it's from. He will tell you like a torque setting, and he'll tell you what bolts and if they make them anymore. The dude is a genius. And I really looked up to Rich when I had the shop down in Florida. We worked together. He was my right-hand man as far as the mechanic, because he was a shop foreman. And he really taught me a lot about the exotic industry and like the actual products that we were working on at that time, and I was more the design mind and obviously working with clients and getting all the builds and stuff. And Rich was the technical guy. And I learned a lot of that stuff from Rich that, you're learning from me at this time. And it's the way that his mind thought through things from a problem solving standpoint, where he blended the dealer manufacturer world into his love for aftermarket motorsports performance. He was a professional drag racer. He grew up in Indiana, Midwest guy. He just had experience that kind of blended all platforms. And that was very similar to me, getting started in late model GM performance cars and then spanning all of that and then getting into the exotic world, hot rods. There was a lot of similarities there that I think him and I really bonded over. And he's somebody who I stay in touch with today, and we congratulate each other and we're proud of each other, and we've stood the test of time through all the other, people that we ever were either going up against or we knew that were in the industry. Yep. So there's a lot of pride that goes into that relationship. But, you taking on some of that and knowing that that was of interest of you was something that I didn't really ask of you. It became, when we first started working together, you knew it was hard for me to ask for help. And I think you had a similar problem asking for help. And it was times where you came to me and say, hey, if you need a hand with something, I'll give you a hand. And when that first started, and I'm transparent. I was like, I probably will do this, but if you want to give me a hand on this part,
yep.
Come on over.
And there's a huge trust factor, especially at the beginning. It's like,
yeah,
I mean,
it's all that.
I had no right, coming in there and be like, hey, I can throw this exhaust in there for you on this 911.
Sure. But that's the thing. That's interesting that you say you have no right, because we work in an industry nowadays where if somebody's done 2 exhausts on a car, they know what they're doing. And they have the tendency to sometimes tell you that you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. And the internet also gives us that bravery to just speak up and say, if I post something out there and somebody disagrees with me and they're John Johnson 46 and he just posts up, or he's got that fake Facebook account that's got the picture of clouds and water and he's just saying, you don't know what you're doing, or how about putting it on the right way, or you're a hack, or we have the tendency to magnify the negative noise.
Yeah.
And, we downplay the positive noise. And the online social media world, what we're doing right now has a tendency to let the people that want to bash. But the people that do support us and talk, they don't speak that much. So that's the challenge with being, outward facing. And in this case, when we're building cars, we're outward facing. So you jump in on a project and I say, go at it. And then you have an issue. Even if it's my personal car, I'm either going to have to fix it, pay to fix it, buy a new part, whatever, if you learn on that car and make mistakes. So blending that trust of saying, well, he does have mechanical experience. He should know how to put this on, but is that fair to put him in a situation and me not also invest the time to make sure I'm there with you to do it? And do I have the mental capacity to handle training somebody? Because that's super undervalued, is what somebody comes in and they're like, hey, just train me.
Exactly.
What if I'm training you, what am I doing in the meantime? And if I'm training you and you expect to be paid full wage and you expect to graduate in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, where does that place us as far as what's the value you're learning from us? Because I really do believe the training experience you get here is not like anything else. What you can learn here will transcend into many different things that are a lot further than going to a dealership and replacing a set of pads every day, doing oil changes, doing a trans flush. There's just stuff you have to learn here, from small fabrication to thinking through how to solve a problem, because you'll have problems.
Processes,
Yes.
cleanliness, work ethic.
Everything. And it's great how your people skills, can you work on a car and talk with people? Can you convey your message in an intelligent way that makes people feel confident that when you make a mistake that you have it under control? And I think that's something that is really not addressed enough, that I feel like I get a lot of respect from the clients that I hear it from them, is that I'm transparent. If we're late, we've made a mistake. We need more, we need a different part. Something's come up. I don't know about it. I need time to, investigate it. Never have had a kickback, knock on wood, because we do communicate in a way that's honest and transparent. And, everybody wants to feel like they're always perfect, and we're not 100% not perfect.
Yep.
All of our certifications are hanging on the wall right there. So if you're looking underneath the label,
I think you painted over them.
oh, they were up there, but, being self-taught and taking that responsibility on of saying, hey, I've got to learn how to hang a fender, or I need to learn how to gap this, or I need, all of that stuff. I think there's a lot more work and effort that goes into that than feeling like everything going into the project. So you coming in now and saying, hey, I've watched you do this. Okay. Do you trust me to do this? Yeah, I do trust you. Is there anything you want me to do in here different? And now you'll see, I think more, I'm asking you, well, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah.
What do you think we should do here? Or jump into that and investigate that a little bit. And if we don't have a solution, let me know where we're hung up at, and let's see where we can go. And then that's invaluable, because it's freed me up to either think about the design, to either work on our business relationship stuff, which is, gets thrown on the back burner when it's customer stuff going on.
Exactly.
To help all of our customers that reach out and want that same level of attention that I've paid to all of their details. We've got some big projects coming in this winter that take, honestly, 30, 40 hours of communication, talking through, quoting, getting timelines together, transportation, all that. That is really not valued from the client standpoint, that we can't say, hey, we're going to spend X amount of time with you. Can you pay me for that?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm not going to be working on this car. Sorry,
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. So you being able to pick up and say, I got you, working with our schedule, saying we're going to have a gap here, boom, boom, boom. And we've gotten really good with our scheduling and kind of, getting that really dialed in, where when we have something sitting, we've got something to do right over here. So we really don't have that time of like we're mismanaging our stuff. But your abilities have really jumped up in the past, I'd say 12 months, probably since the last, I would think, because it was just you and I in that last car.
It probably started there.
Yeah, I think it had to have started there, because you did learn a lot in the first couple cars. And we had Mark help us out too, in some of those. But this car, we took a lot more of the responsibility on ourselves. You really learned a lot, I think, when we were fitting the panels. And at that point, most people don't know, I was doing all of the style lines on the car, fine tuning them. We were sanding them, light filling. And then Justin would bring the film over. We'd put film over it to test our lines to see if they all aligned and were sharp, the radius that we want. We went around that whole car and basically hand sanded and formed most of that stuff prior to finishing, to make it align the way that we wanted, because those were the prototype panels. They weren't the dialed in panels. And that car came out phenomenal. So that also led into the knowledge where I got better of making the pocketing and the way the parts nested, so that we didn't have these parts when they mounted in the fenders kind of skating like this. They kind of could only go in one way, and then they only had a small little bit of play, which allowed us to have a lot better, I guess, bite with those parts going together. But sourcing the hardware, doing the side skirts mounting. Remember, we trimmed the side skirts back. We did those
had to
first.
Build brackets.
Build brackets. The diffuser when we had to cut all of the exhaust mounts off because of those clearancing parts there. Everything you had a hand on. You weren't as hands-on as you are currently, but you were involved in every part of that project. So I guess here I want to say congratulations on what you've learned, and you already know that. I've told you just recently how much you have helped bringing up that level of work, and saying, I gotcha. And that's set us up to really be successful putting these cars together because you've been able to fill them gaps like that we've talked about. That's behind the scenes, the stuff that you don't see, but it takes time, and it takes planning and it takes, so I'm going to make a mistake here. I got to find the hardware here. I got to do,
Yep.
it takes a lot of planning. So you've done a great job with that. And I say all that just to let people know that I'm proud of Justin. But when you see Justin in the booth, make sure you give him a shout out too for helping me with everything. I might be the brainchild, but I'm not a team. I'm just a single person, and I always like to bring up the team. Everybody that helps us look great, do great, function great, and that's from suppliers to media to you to Christina, our significant others, our family. Everybody's had a hand in making that team be successful. It's not just a couple people. And if people take that credit, I don't think that's really fair because
Right.
it's so much more, so much bigger than that to start a small business and to operate on this level. It's a blessing with a lot of sacrifice that comes with it.
It truly is. And I mean, going back to some of that stuff that you said, well, thank you first of all, but I think me learning and sitting back and watching for so many years has really grown my interest in, being like, I really want to be a part of this. And, I want to get my hands dirty. I want to start putting these cars together. And ultimately, like, long-term goal is to be able to build cars like that full time and step away from the PPF and vinyl work. But, leading into that is it's all about trust. And that was the biggest thing is like, I had your trust with certain jobs over the years of, hey, take this on. And for me, it's like, I don't want to let you down.
Right.
And if I do, that it's a tough spot to be in because it's like, he finally let me, go at this one. I'm going to knock it out of the park. And I try to do that every time, but there's always, hiccups here and there. Yep. And then it's kind of how you take care of those, whether it's you're breaking a clip, you got to go buy a new part. And, me trying to just be transparent and be like, hey yep. man, like this is where I'm at. I accidentally did this, mistakes happen, but let's try to get a solution and get this taken care of.
Yep.
But then, in this recent build, it's, I think you allowing me to giving me more freedom with kind of putting my creativity, my mechanical knowledge from the past that I've learned, on rally teams and different things like that is,
yep.
Some of that stuff was sloppy because it's rushed. And I've been trying to merge those two of like what I have from the past into what we do here. And I think that's, kind of been crucial with some of the stuff is, I have the ability to bring in some different knowledge on certain things and then add your element into that. And now it's like I've tried to mend both of those worlds and try to create, like, the biggest thing is I just don't want to let you down with if you trust me, hey, go build this bracket for this fender liner. Sorry, all right, I'm gonna go build the best bracket I can. Like, that's just what it is.
Yep.
And I don't want to let you down with that. And I think it's been fun for me because there's times where I'm loaded up with PPF for a couple weeks, couple months, and it's just it burns me out after a while. So like having the break here and there, and through the past year, being able to schedule ourselves the way we have. To be able to be like, all right, here's a week of a full car.
Yep.
That next week we're gonna have 2 quick turn exhaust suspension aero. Let's get that knocked out. How does this sound? And then it gives you the ability. I think that's the biggest thing for me is like understanding now like the importance of it is before I was like, okay, yeah, it's helping you out, but for the most part you were down there with me.
Right.
You're giving me a hand, like you were saying, is like I'm still watching, I'm still learning, but now you giving me free reign of like, hey, this is the project I got for you. Are you able to knock it out? This is the time frame we got. Like, oh, heck yeah. And then understanding what you're doing off of that car is almost has more importance to what I'm doing on the car. And, understanding that we really actually need that to happen. Like this business almost couldn't operate any other way because of the importance of what you do on the computer, the way you communicate with clients, partners, getting parts ordered, all that stuff on the back end. Yep. There's not enough time in the week to get everything done.
Right.
And so that's been a big responsibility on my end, but it's been awesome. It's a lot of fun for me, and especially with the wide bodies. I mean, it's like it's just a dream come true to be be a part of projects like this, and then to know that there's nobody else in the world doing this, and it's
Right.
like the sickest feeling ever. So like to be able to even have a little part of that, and then knowing, like you were talking about with the SEMA cars, like we were hand shaping lines, all that stuff that, we sit back and it's on the main stage and we're looking at it and we're like, a week ago we were out
Right.
here sanding the, like there's just cool stories behind it. And,
Yeah.
I think but you and I are kind of geared pretty similar in work ethic and stuff. And there was a period of time where, we had some relationships and some help that didn't work out, and it kind of forced us to get into a position where it's like, we got to start making some decisions on what are we going to do here. It's like it's
Absolutely.
back to just you and I. We're still trying to maintain the level of cars that we can put out of here. We're trying to load up the schedule.
Yep.
We're also trying to capture media and somehow manage through all that, and all that stuff. I think just builds a tighter relationship at the end of the day.
Yep.
And the biggest thing is trust. And I think you and I both have that for each other, is like, no matter what happens, whether, paint peels off a car because of PPF removal, or, we break a stud on something. It's just like that stuff's going to happen, but it's how you work through that. And, that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from you, is like right off the rip, we had some problems with a couple cars, and it's like, I never had to manage through that stuff. And
Sure.
The way you worked through it, and I knew like off the get, you were like, I've got your back, dude. Like, mistakes are going to happen. Like, yeah, it's probably going to cost us money. Whatever that looks like, it's going to cost us time. You're going to have to work extra.
Yep.
That's just the nature of the game. And so, I really appreciate all the trust that you've put into me now to, take some of your clients and build some of these cars. And, that's kind of the vision for myself in the future, is to try to get more involved with this. And, it's been awesome, and I can't wait to do more of it.
Yeah.
And,
I love it. I mean, that I've been searching for somebody like that, forever, and everybody has the dream to do it, but they just don't have the other elements that you're just not trained to that. You're either born with it, or you learn it over time, or it's something that's ingrained in it. It's so important to you that you take it on as your own. And that's really what you're talking about. When I hear everything, I hear you taking it as your own.
Yeah.
So you're saying letting me down. I get that. That's the topical answer. But at the end of the day, that's you. What you're doing on that car is, you can't say, well, they did that, or he picked that up, or you're taking responsibility and saying, this is my work. And letting Andy down doesn't mean, I'm not there for him, or he's going to be upset with me because I bent it the wrong way, or blah, blah, blah. Letting Andy down is you letting yourself down. That's the way that I see it, because if you let yourself down, you can be guaranteed you're going to let everybody else down.
That is true.
And that could be a relationship. That could be with your family. It could be with anybody. You know what I mean? And that's what that's where you and I are the same. I don't want to let you down. When you came in here, I told you, and respectfully, you had a business that you functioned for years out of and made a living and had your own life and things going on. You certainly didn't need me to come in and say, hey, I can promise you the world and blah, blah, blah. None of that stuff. You chose to come over based on the circumstances that you looked at, and you said, I think this might be a good opportunity for me, and maybe I'll give it a shot. And my commitment to you was, when you come over here, there's going to be a way that we're going to do things, and it's going to be hard. There's going to be some learning lessons. There's going to be some stuff you probably didn't expect, because you wouldn't know any of this until you're inside the four walls. Yeah. And everybody thinks they know the business, but until you're inside and you work day to day, there's just so much more to it than what you see on the outside.
Yep.
But when you came in and I said, you're not going to have to push yourself, business will be there. I can promise you, once we turn the faucet on, the faucet will not turn off. We will just need to figure out how to manage the faucet. That's ultimately what happened. And I think that was me first saying, I'm bringing another individual in here, and I've promised him that this is going to be how it's going to be. That's me being responsible and saying, now this is my responsibility. You are my responsibility, not, oh, I got him in here now.
Yeah.
I'm good. You know what I mean? Like that's the backwards way to look at it. No matter who you bring on, there's a level of responsibility. If you care about that position, that person, your company, yourself, if you're not assuming responsibility to help that person get better, support them, be there for them, whatever that might look like, then you can't expect them to be successful. And in our business, that's a magnifying lens times 50. You know, you go to a McDonald's, you go to a business that you're selling wheels or things. That's a pretty self-explanatory business. You may need to learn product knowledge, but here's our goal. We need to sell 50 hamburgers a day. I need to answer. I need to push the button.
Exactly.
Boom, boom, boom. Here, there's so many other elements. That stuff that we just talked about, that's the the easy stuff you remember. That's the very smallest part of this business. That is the part of putting film down is the very smallest part of this business. Putting parts on a car, very smallest part of this business. Everything else that you don't see is the stuff that you have to be successful. And I told you that story when I first came over. I had everybody saying, nobody in West Michigan, nobody here is ever going to do this. I mean, I have people, friends, man, I would love to be involved. There's no way anybody's going to do that. Well, how do you know? What business is here doing it? No one. Well, they're doing it because there's no one here to do it. No one wants to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've already been the judge, jury, and executioner in the same sentence, yet you haven't put one foot into the pool to figure out what's going on out there. And, part of my brashness and confidence comes from saying, well, just because somebody else didn't do it doesn't mean I can't do it. And that's the mentality you had when you came in here.
Yeah.
Just because so-and-so and so-and-so can't do it doesn't mean I can't do it. And maybe I don't know what's in these four walls, but I'm going to give it a shot. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you came over, you started to assume responsibility, and when you saw things go sideways, listen, stuff's been going sideways for me for 25 years. Shit, I mean, that's how I got started.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I made a mistake, and I was like, well, I guess I got to find somebody that's going to fix this because I don't know how to fill holes in a body panel that I just accidentally drilled into. Yeah. And that's the easy part, though. You know what I mean? Like, that's a part you would document in a vlog. You'd be like, today, we're going to fill these body holes and paint them. Oh, cool. Exactly. I mean, that's great. That's interesting. But at the end of the day, what about how did you come up with the plan to drill that hole? You made the mistake to drill the hole. What were you going for? And then when it's all done, what were you accomplishing with that? And really, you were accomplishing something different because you were trying something different and you made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do here. We try something different. We learn from those mistakes and then we adapt and get smarter. And that's what you've done since day one coming over here. Just on your own craft, and then now doing it on what we work on now. So that's why you're in the position. You've earned it. I mean, at the end of the day, you've earned it. Nothing that was given to you just because you were here for this amount of time doesn't mean that you would have this opportunity to do it. There were full-fledged mechanics that come in here, and those guys couldn't figure out how to work cleanly, couldn't figure out how to have some standard behind the way you take parts off or protect items. They would damage things. And, they've made $150,000 being a master mechanic, professionally trained, but they don't know the parameters of working in the aftermarket or extremely high-end things, stuff like that. So
I truly don't think, I mean, that's kind of my take on college and extra, education. Is like some of this stuff, if you want to do this specialty, business, and what we do is, I don't think there's really an education for it.
Right.
Unless you have somebody like you, or you do it yourself and you're willing to learn and make the mistakes.
Yeah.
I don't think any formal training can get you every element that are in these four walls.
Agree.
And that's what's challenging with it too, is, there's some things that you just wouldn't do anywhere else. And, maybe at some of the higher end stuff like Ferrari store or Lamborghinis, whatever. But it's still going to be different. And that's what I've grown to respect, is like, you have the ability to wrench on a car all day long and get dirty and all that. But then you step back and look at the workspace, sometimes it is blown apart a little bit, but like for the most part, it's like you go home and it's like, you haven't been a grease ball all day
right.
and working on this car. It's just like the way we do things is just so much different. And we clean, we're cleaning fender liners before we're taking them out. Like there's just so many little elements that I've learned over the years. And I think, that really reflects in the work. Mm-hmm. Every aspect of the work is, it really makes a big difference. And that's been, the hardest thing for me, especially at the beginning, was like the cleanliness part is, I came from a completely different looking shop, and I had half blown apart cars in the corner, engines on a stand, and
Yeah.
all this stuff. Where I come in here and we got white floors. I'm taking my shoes off, putting slippers on.
Right.
But yeah, it's just different, and I think it's for the better. That's not who I am naturally, but it's forced me to become different and appreciate that and really understand now, like, there is value in that. And when somebody walks in the door, hopefully there's times 10% of the time where things are maybe blown apart, we got parts everywhere, but for the most part it's pretty dialed, even if we are hands deep in a project. And I think that's extremely important no matter what business you're in, is that first impression can do everything, because you never know who's walking through that door. And we've had that a few times. Is like,
absolutely,
someone's walking through this door and they have plans to do a substantial build, and that's the first time. Just pop in. It's like, whoa, here we go.
Absolutely.
And you better have your stuff dialed.
Yep. I mean, we've had manufacturers walk in.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean, and it was unplanned. They just saw us in the space, and they were like, "We want to go visit them." And we had CEOs walk in.
And normally we spend a day like cleaning up for that kind of stuff, but
I also just want to finalize that whole statement there about the cleanliness and about the way that we work. My family, I come from a regular middle class. My dad worked for Airgas he retired from Airgas after 40 years selling industrial gas and welding supplies and stuff. My mom worked in the school system. They gave us everything we wanted in a controlled scale. Obviously, we didn't go out and eat and stuff like that, but Christmas, like I'd get good Christmas gifts and stuff like that. And we certainly weren't rich. My dad, I think, only bought one new car until he retired. And my mom never bought a new car. So, they didn't spend their money on what they thought were frivolous. They took care of their home, their family, made sure we had savings if we wanted to go to school, if they needed to pay for school, but they always took pride in what they had. So even though it might not be brand new or it might not be the best thing, the detail that they took care with of the house and the items that they had, and my parents still have their cookware from when they got married. And my dad is, notorious for he's the like dad meme of like, I've got that screw someplace. I've been keeping it for 35 years. You know what I mean? And have it someplace downstairs. And I always used to give him a hard time about it, just that type of mentality, because I was very much like, I go through it, throw it away, blah, blah, blah. And I am still more the opposite of my dad, but that instilled the pride of anything that you were able to acquire, whether it be brand new, used, the best thing for you, the best thing to you, take care of it, clean it, treat it like it's new, and maintain it, and it will carry more value. And when you do that with more things in your life, you'll find that in this world, we're judged by what's new and flashy and the best thing. But when you're surrounded by a lot of great things that you've taken care of that have average value, that you're pretty full, right? Like, you don't need to have the $50,000 side by side. And I only talk about this because I just got a used one.
Right.
And I will, clean this one up, put a few things on it, maintain it, and it will be great for what, I want to do with it. But I think that goes with your home, your space that you work in, your equipment, the things that you have. These might not be the most expensive mics, but I want to care for them and take care of them like they are, because they're going to last. And if I get to the point to be fortunate enough to have the most expensive mics, then great. And we'll have a great product that we could sell or give to somebody else, and we'll treat them exactly the same. And I think that's really the reflection on the workspace, and the trust that you get from the customer is that they take so much care in their own stuff and where they work and their tools and things like that, that take my car. It's $350,000. I trust you. I have no questions about it. And that's something that, again, you take as personal responsibility, and I've seen you do the same. Yep. And I'm just proud that we've got that reputation and people continue to trust us to do that.
It's everything.
Yeah, it's great.
I know. It's truly an honor. We are very grateful for every single person that has entrusted us with a car.
Yeah, there's no label specific customers either. Let's get that. Let's clear that up. People think you got to have like $100,000 to build a car at label
or an exotic, like
an exotic. Yeah. No,
we like Mustangs. Oh, sorry, never mind.
I don't think that's a Mustang. That's a GTD. You might not see that one, but anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this lengthy episode. We're trying to do these once a week, bring you up to speed with what's going on, a little bit of backstory, some stuff about our relationships, things that are going on behind the camera that we're going to bring to you in the future episodes. As usual, like and subscribe. Let us know if there's anything that you do want us to talk about. And also, I think we're going to start hitting some current events and maybe some Q&As from the guy behind the camera that we may introduce at some point. But I think we got to get them dressed up before we put them in front of the camera.
Also, dude, we might have to have a set change here.
Set change?
My back is on fire. This thing is flaming hot right now.
It's a personal problem, dude.
I know. It's like the heating pad's on. But
it's bear skin.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bear skin. I think it's cow skin.
It's hot.
All
so
right.
We'll put it on your
maybe
chair.
Justin will be in maybe he'll be in a tank top in the next episode or something. I don't know, but don't
we can shoot
we could put a black bar on him. That would actually be good. But maybe we'll get somebody over here too. But with SEMA, I doubt I'm dealing with getting anybody here and trying to do a podcast before SEMA.
How many days we got?
39 days because I just paid for everybody's registration today before the price goes up tomorrow. So let's just focus on SEMA. That's what we're going to keep talking about, guys. As usual, we thank you guys for watching and supporting, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See ya.